from 6 p.m. to approximately 8:15 p.m. We were in executive session for personnel issues. There's numerous personnel issues on the agenda this evening. We also had an item on litigation. With that, if there's no objections or questions from anyone, I'd like to place minutes of the previous meeting, September 20 and the 22nd of 2021. Additionally, the Treasurer's Report, payment of the general and federal fund bills, payment of the cafeteria fund bills, and again, if there's no objections or questions, I'll place those on the agenda for Wednesday evening. Moving to public comment. No public comment this evening for agenda items. Moving to athletics and recreation, please.
Supplemental positions. Request approval of the following supplemental contracts for the 21-22 school year. Contingent upon receipt of a signed contract no later than 1 month after insurance, including the posting of the position if the contingency is not met pending solicitor review. Diving coach, freshman boys basketball system coach, 8th grade boys basketball system coach, first assistant track coach. There's no objections or questions like that on the agenda.
Place that on the agenda.
Request approval of the following volunteer coaches: varsity wrestling, varsity wrestling. There's no questions or objections like that on the agenda.
Place that on the agenda.
Request approval to form a girls wrestling club for Missouri School District students to be run by the varsity wrestling coaches at no additional cost to the district. There's no questions or objections like that on the agenda.
Place that on the agenda.
Request approval to extend the lease of the Lions Club for concession stands for an additional 5 years through July 31st, 2026. There's no objections or questions like that on the agenda.
We'll place that on the agenda.
Request approval to accept the resignation of a middle school 8th grade assistant boys basketball coach. No questions or objections like that on the agenda.
Place that on the agenda.
Request approval to accept the resignation of freshman assistant boys basketball coach. No questions or comments like that on the agenda.
We'll place that on the agenda.
That's all I have. Mr. Monjo? Mr. Lake? Mr. Evans isn't here. That's all we have.
Thank you. Moving to buildings and grounds.
Thank you. Item 8A, request the approval to buy out the following detached Ram, ProMaster, City van leases, 3 leases altogether, with Enterprise at a cost of $16,822.48 to be paid from capital reserve, and without questions, I'd like that placed on the agenda.
We'll place that on the agenda.
Item 8B, request the approval to advertise and solicit bids for the Dunbar Township Elementary School parking lot paving project and an estimated cost of $33,000, and without questions or exemptions, I'd like that placed on the agenda.
Question.
Yes.
I'm strongly in favor of maybe working on this project, or maybe when the career center gets involved or somebody else, but I'm not in favor of paying before winter. We can look at the project, but I'm not in favor of spending $33,000 and hiring engineers to look at this, but it's a minimal place. I know they need it, but I think it can be done for less than $33,000. I wouldn't pay for this time of year. I agree.
Well, being at that price, estimated cost there, we're way over the $21,000 anyhow. It's going to have to be put out for bids as well. And what I'd like to add to that, while we're doing that, we could look at Wolfskin Township out there at the lower entrance going in. That's pretty bad out there. It needs to be repaired. So, Mrs. Brunel, if you could maybe possibly get a quote for that as well. To just do that one section down there.
Mr. Mortray, if we do it in-house, we don't need any bids. It doesn't matter what it costs because we're doing it ourselves. That's what we're trying to say. We're going to save the district the money and do it ourselves.
With that input, I'll follow with Mr. Steiner with that input, and Mr. James and Mr. Steiner and I can meet and we can follow up on that. With that input from the board, thank you.
So what are we doing? Are we removing it from the agenda?
If we're going to vote for it or against it, that will be on Wednesday, is that not correct?
That's correct, unless you want to withdraw from the agenda, not put it up on the vote on the basis that the intention would be more to just do it in-house with the district. But it's a project or something that has your board myself.
And I think if anybody has a better way of doing this, have a motion ready for Wednesday, and if this gets shot down, we'll read the other motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mondo. I think that if we have it as a hands-on learning project for our Career and Technical Center students, that it wouldn't require a motion on the coordination of their transportation to the site and their coordination of their equipment. If it's feasible, I'll have that discussion with Mr. James as soon as possible and with Mr. Steiner. But if it's a hands-on learning opportunity for those students, I think that it's a great opportunity for them. And it'll be an awesome opportunity that they can reflect back on something that they contributed to their school district.
So we leave it on there until you can give us some more information on Wednesday, see if it's something the Career Center can.
Thank you. Yes.
Second, okay.
I have a question. Do they take off Wednesday?
If there's not enough votes for it, it'll be taken off.
So either put it on the agenda, or withdraw it from the agenda. It's going down.
First of all, back from lack of a second.
Saying we have to vote something down and we can do it in-house.
Who got the prices and would be $33,000 to pay this? Dig up all the topsoil, cut it out, and then, who got the price of $33,000? Why, how can we bid on something, how can we vote on something estimated cost of $33,000? What happens if it's $163,000?
You're not voting on that. That was the estimated cost. The resolution is to approve, advertise, and solicit bids. So we don't know what it is. That's just an estimate of what Dan Sullivan thought would be based on the calculations he did, which was fairly correct, only paid for the parking for the homeowners.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
They dug nothing out and put no stone in. They just paid. So I don't know where he get his calculations.
You know what, I have no problem with it, right? They want to solicit bids for it,
Yeah.
We got to get an engineer too.
That's all you have. That's all they want to do is
It's
solicit
not
bids.
for approval of the parking lot. This motion is to solicit bids.
Correct?
Don't we have to pay for the bids?
Yeah, I'll bet they specifically can't wait to look at that little pen mark across there. I know a lot of people come out and bid, can't wait to see a good pen mark.
So don't we have to pay for somebody to come out here and make a bid? So there you are wasting money right there. We might not even use them when we have it in-house.
Mr. Sullivan got this bid $33,000 from Goodyear engineer. He's the one that probably put another word for the parking lot. He agreed as well.
Don't forget, there's two of us that don't get attachments.
I understand that, Marlene, but you said he based it off of what Dairy Construction did with their paving. Dairy Construction did no digging, they did no stone work, they did nothing to prep anything. All they did was overlay the asphalt. So we're talking two different scopes of work. I know I'm on buildings and grounds because I'm not that smart.
Okay, well, when we wrote it out,
Woodward came out and checked it out and measured everything off and checked out the spots? Just don't understand. If we can do this for minimal cost to give the kids the chance to learn, find out how big a parking spot is, find things out, and those kids can do it, I'm lost.
I agree, but can we table this until Mr. Bradley talks to them and see what our kids can do? Well, let's take it off.
Let's,
Just clarify, whether it's on the agenda or not, is consideration.
let's move on to 8C.
I am on the committee and I say take it off.
This is added to the agenda. Tomorrow, or Wednesday, we could take it off.
Then you want a solution for it by
Okay, here,
Wednesday evening.
I looked it up,
I didn't hear you.
as Mrs. Grinnell said. This includes mobilization, equipment and labor for earthwork, hauling, spreading, and compacting stone. They're putting in 6 inches of 2B stone, base layer of asphalt to be 3 inches deep, thick, top layer to be 1.5 inches thick, and line striping is included. For a grand total of $32,924.50.
Well, until Woodward goes down there and start that tomorrow, don't want to need to down and start it. Because I don't think you can do it. But that's for Woodward engineering, right?
Yes, that's what,
Woodward do all the projects like that? I mean, physically do the work?
no, they're bidding it. They're not going to work. This is what they're saying.
If you come in,
Yes, that's their estimate. As Mrs. Grinnell said, this is their estimate. And that was Carrie Bell, looks like,
The
provided.
bottom line is, this motion is to advertise and to
Yes.
solicit bids.
So what,
So,
$100
We can have this conversation after we at least get somebody to bid on it and see what they bid. Before we start working on the,
You have $500 in advertising, that's about 2 loads of stone in the project.
so do you want to do it without advertising?
I think we should let the kids get
Okay.
Sign it to our CTC kids and let them do it. Don't even advertise.
Got equipment, nothing better than hands on.
Do we have kids that can take care of this? Do we have the equipment? You're right here. You can give us an answer right now. Size, Mr. Mack?
33 spots, I think.
There's a,
20 spots long.
it says here 8,000 square feet.
I don't think we need to worry about that.
Yeah, don't do it like your way, like, exactly. You do.
Well, it's all grass.
Justin, I'll just print this for you, Justin, for you to just look at it at least. Yeah, you can look at that version, Justin, and then go off of that, and then you can. Yeah. Yeah. And you know how many hours of work you guys actually get in when you get down there and transport them over and everything like that as well. Yep, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
Moving on.
8C, requested the approval to purchase approximately 7,100 ceiling tiles to complete the inside ceilings, upstairs, hallways, and classrooms at Dunbar Township Elementary School at an approximate cost not to exceed $38,000 and to be paid from capital reserve funds. And without objection, I'd like that placed on the agenda.
Place that on the agenda.
Item 8D, request the approval for Fox Glass to install the Dunbar Township Security Vestibule per the attached specifications at a cost of $20,300 to be paid from a PCCD grant. Without any questions, I'd like that placed on the agenda.
Place that on the agenda.
Item 8E, request the approval to advertise and solicit bids for the sale of an alignment machine to the highest bidder. Without questions, I'd like that placed on the agenda.
Place that on the agenda.
And item 8J, request the approval to advertise and solicit for bids to prepare and paint the stadium's student section with, from a commercial painting contractor with all remediation necessary to mitigate the effects of the lead paint. Blue paint only. And
Where are you
without
reading that at?
questions, I'd like that placed on the agenda.
Where are you reading that at?
This is a new motion that I was handed today whenever I came in from the director.
From what?
From
You can't just add it on like that.
this.
That was discussed in our committee meeting. It was supposed to be put on.
This is an addition to the agenda that we had made up yesterday. This is a request to paint the stadium. To get a quote to paint the stadium.
But then there we go again, that we can use our kids to do that for projects.
And we won't know what it's going to cost until we get a quote.
It's the same thing as what it's different than the state law.
I'm on the committee and I heard nothing of it.
That's $15,000 just to check stuff.
Why can't we do the same thing again? Why is everybody leaving out the career center? Let's put these kids, they have to learn to do things. So why are we going to spend hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars to get bids and quotes when we can ask them first? Why am I on the committee and nobody said anything to me and you're going to bring it up to me right now on stage? No? Did anybody call me and tell me one thing about the meeting? Not one.
You mean that
So no, I'm not going to, I will not vote for it. I knew nothing about it. Nobody told me a thing about any of this on this thing here today. Nothing.
Sounds like it needs to go back to committee.
I knew not one thing. There's how many items on this? 8J, I knew not one. And I'm on this committee. And you're going to put all this on here for us to vote for and I don't even know anything about it? No, unfair. Well, I'm sorry I have 3 jobs, so somebody could at least call me up or send me a text and say, here's what happened at the meeting. If somebody don't come to my meetings, I always send them a text and let them know what happened.
Oh, really? We'll talk
I
about
haven't
this.
had any meetings. Have you had any meetings?
We'll talk about this after we get this, all this.
Well, you better talk now because I gotta leave and go to work at 10:30. I don't get attachments. I tell you, I've been telling you guys that for 2.5 years. I do not get attachments.
When did you send these out? When did you send these attachments? All to the committee? I thought you meant all. Yeah.
Sent it before the meeting. So it's already, this was on before the meeting? I don't get attachments. That doesn't matter, I just don't get attachments.
Mr. Grinnell, you did invite any member of the board who wanted to come to that meeting, although it was just our Buildings and Ground Committee. But you invited anybody who wanted to come. I remember seeing it.
Well, once again, it's not, all she wants to do is a permission to get quotes. It doesn't mean you're gonna approve the quotes. And again, this might not be something that doesn't come up to spring because you're running out of time to paint anyway. So, my opinion is you let her get the quotes and see what the quotes come in, and then you guys can go from there.
Just a question.
Excuse me, when was the committee meeting held?
October 5th, 6 o'clock.
I have a question.
Yeah, October 5th, and when was the agenda setting meeting?
A couple of weeks out.
A couple weeks after. So why wasn't it put on at that point?
It was. It was.
Where is it? I don't see it on mine.
It was taken off.
Somebody took it off.
Somebody took it off. It wasn't the committee. You tell me who took it off.
Another thing you said, Mr. Martre, is anybody can come to the Buildings and Grounds Committee. You can't have more than 4 people at a committee meeting, so I don't know what you're talking about. Whether Marlene sends it out to everybody or Mr. Martre, you're allowed 4 people and that's it.
What you went out,
So, who told you that? Our solicitor? Wait a minute, did our solicitor tell you that? Yes or no, our solicitor?
So the question just to clarify was whether, was it advertised, is a meeting advertised as a committee meeting or as a board meeting? Okay. So if it's advertised as a committee meeting, committee members are obviously entitled to attend that. But it should involve a full board because then it's not advertised as an actual board meeting. You're into the issue of potentially having more than a quorum of the board there to deliberate over official board business. So if it's advertised as a board session, then any board members can attend. If it's a committee meeting, you generally want to limit that just to the committee members in order to avoid an issue that it wasn't advertised pursuant to the Sunshine Act as a actual full board meeting. So that's it all depends on how it was advertised. That's what would dictate who all would be specifically invited to attend that.
Yeah, 'cause the rest of us knew we weren't allowed to come.
One more thing, too, let's make it perfectly clear. I hope that everybody knows the difference between a quote and an advertisement. Because we throw that word out really loosely out there. When we advertise for something, we're going to put it in the newspaper, we're going to pay money to advertise. A quote, you can go out anywhere and get 3 quotes, you don't need to advertise for quotes. There's a big difference. engineer give you a price on that and said it was gonna be over $21?
Being mistaken,
Yeah, who gave you that
well,
price?
I'm telling you right now, get a commercial painting person, paint that stadium, remediate lead, it could probably be hundreds of thousands. I have no idea, but I can guarantee it's
I thought when we first brought this up 2 months ago, it was just for the student side. Now it's the whole stadium? Okay. I don't have no measurement.
Want me to read this again? They got to vote on it tomorrow. Anyhow, it's Wednesday. I received this when I came in. Request the approval to advertise and solicit the bids to prepare and paint the stadium student section from a commercial painting contractor with all remediation necessary to mitigate the effects of the lead paint.
See, Solomon and I were down there to see, he wasn't considering cutting that thing. We were considering cutting the handle off, putting on a wooden handle, replace it, and then the side part would be long, just paint it gray. It would be the face of it, and what you walk. The rest of it would not touch. That was the original part. Yeah. That would one of you left is that you pull it to come, both sides. Cut it off the way.
Mr. Mongello, you were handed that before you came in here, and you're the head of the committee, so you really didn't know about it until you got it too, right?
No, you told us it was off. Yes, you had to hand him a paper, then why didn't you tell us to take it off? Gave it to us now. Nothing, told me it was off. Told me personally it was off. 10 minutes. 10 minutes. 15 maybe.
Again, all she's asking is the approval to go get quotes to see what it's going to cost. She'll bring those back to the board at some point. It don't even have to be next board meeting. You're not going to be able to paint it in the wintertime. So it looks like it's going to be a spring project. So she has plenty of time to go out, get quotes, whatever she needs to do, bring it back to the board sometime at the first of the year. These are the quotes. What do you want to do with it?
So as volatile as everything is right now, Mr. President, we did this approved with DT. We're gonna go ahead, we're gonna solicit bids in October, and we might put something out in March. We think that paint and supplies and with everything going on, the way things are, that it may change in 6 months. Kind of silly to bid it, get our quotes now. Should we be better off getting closer to the spring than we may be doing something?
No.
You do not have to spend that capital improvement money. You were told you don't have to spend it. I was at the meeting and so was everybody else. You do not. We were told that. Yes, that is exactly what was said. Exactly what was said. He said, we spent it. We spent what we had to spend. We do not have to spend it crazily. And we can make good, sound decisions with the rest of our money. Now, I know everybody else was in that meeting, and that's exactly what he said. If you guys are trying to do a spending frenzy before you, some of these people get off of here, it sure seems like this month or next month. Go at it.
Mr. Panzella, again, you're not going to get these quotes in probably till the first of the year.
Once again, Mr. Romatic, I'm asking you, I mean, you're great at this, and you even said about the school roof. Why would we do anything now, as volatile as things are, and not put it closer to spring to get the bid so we have a sound quote? Otherwise, we're throwing the district's money and the taxpayers' money right out the window by doing it today for something 6 months later.
You don't have to do it today. You're giving her approval for her to get time to put this together. Again, she's not putting anything out tomorrow for the November or the December board meeting. And once again, when you go back to the roof, these are seasonal jobs. And contractors are looking for work. The best time to bid these projects is early, when contractors are looking for work. And it doesn't matter what happens in the economy. When they give you a price, they have to hold to that price. So if they tell you it's going to cost $10,000 in March to paint that stadium, and they're not going to start till May, and then when they start in May, and the price of paint went up $10 a gallon, that doesn't come back to the school district.
Most quotes are coming out 7 to 10 days, and that's all they're holding right now for any quotes going out. 7 to 10 days. Because everything's so volatile. Nobody's going to tell you that they'll guarantee you what the gallon of paint's going to be in April. Nobody. 7 to 10 days is what quotes out there right now are guaranteed.
Item number 8G. Item 8F.
8F, yes.
Pardon me?
Yes, 8F.
8F. Request the approval for dumpsters to clean out old unwanted items from underneath the stage without any questions or exceptions of
Question.
That was the next.
Can we put quotes for dumpsters to clean out the old unwanted items underneath the stage?
Sure,
In the same way with the next one?
sure. Request approval to receive quotes for dumpsters to clean out the wanted items at the stadium. So we'll give them approval to give the quotes. If you want to move on it in November, you can. If you don't, do it whenever. So we'll add that, if you don't mind, Mr. Montiel, request approval for quotes for dumpsters.
Also, it'd be nice to know what wanted items
Okay, hearing, that's all the questions, Laura, we'll place that on the agenda. Receive quotes.
Great, I have a question.
Question?
Dave said the unwanted items, you can't sell them or something? I mean, is it junk? Is it,
You got a tire down there, you got those stages. I go over the first year, and he got pictures before I got up and that guy, it's all how, be a good storage spot where everybody can get, clean that out. So we're just put his pad in there, I kind of stuff, sell that stuff, but, maybe we make some kind of storage in underneath.
Item 8G, request the approval to remove or top off trees around the stadium that are deemed a hazard. And without question, I'd like that placed on the
And once again, we'll add to solicit quotes. Is that what you wanted, Mr. Lake? We'll place that on the agenda to solicit quotes to top off or remove the trees at the stadium.
As long as they're all on our property.
Yes, well, when it's fading, I don't think it's on our property, but it's playing over, regularly come down and pull it out.
now it's on the field house, Dave.
We can't cut someone else's tree.
Someone else's tree. Doesn't matter where it's leaning.
So if all you put out,
You better have good trees.
one lady on,
You can cut anything that overhangs on your property. Correct, solicitor?
So the law in Pennsylvania is somewhat murky on this, and there's lots of litigation about these sorts of issues. You know you're safe when you cut a tree that's entirely on your property. That's an easy one. If it's a tree that there's an overhang that is creating an imminent safety risk, you oftentimes are okay to cut that as well if it's overhanging, but you want to make sure that you don't damage the remaining portions of the tree or cause any other damage that would kill the tree or cause it to fall onto the next door neighbor's property. Otherwise, you're assuming the liability at that point of the tree falling. So that's the concern usually with the liability from those sorts of issues.
I think our guys have had a little back and it dropped you. It's already improving, so I think our guys can have, I'm just about to call them about it.
It's not a problem. You should find the property owner and let him see the tree.
Discuss it with the property owner. I tried it on my map with, already property. Similar to the terrace, the house, for you. They may even take it out of there for you.
They won't cluster them.
Well, either point, I have our guy drop back to the fence, right?
Yeah, as long as we're not damaging the tree, creating the fall, or exacerbate the situation, cause it to fall on the adjacent, current property owner's property. That's the only thing. I assume it's a completely dead tree.
Well, they all, right behind your courthouse, it's close to our property line. I think there's a lot in the house.
Well, since the housing authority is working on a big project there, I'm sure they would not have an objection to having us cut down that tree, which is a safety concern, but we should reach out to them beforehand just to confirm that we're okay.
Other than our maybe that they put me in there, that people all over there.
Okay, moving on. Item number 8H, request the approval to advertise and solicit bids for new hot water tanks at Dunbar Township Elementary School and award to the lowest bidder. Last bid in 2018 for $29,265 and $31,370. But the request is for soliciting bids for 2 hot water tanks in Dunbar Township. And with no questions, I'd like that placed on the agenda.
Question,
Yes.
since we last bid them in 2018, it still should be the same specs, so we shouldn't have to have new specs for it or anything, we could just have the old specs and send out the bid.
Yeah, I would think. Nothing's changed. Yeah.
That way we would take us anything, we just send them out.
We had prices from Mr. Woodby from Remain Fence. He gave me a bid back in 17 of like $29,000, and went up to $31,000 in 2018. I called him about, 6 months ago, and he told me he had time to get another bid for it, because I wanted another, my third bid, and he said he's got me really too busy to look at it. So I called Greenwood Brothers. Greenwood Brothers is the second one I ever called, it was like $39,000. But after we got out with the, when we get serious about it, he said he could have time to do it. He had all the specs, Greenwood had all the specs, they have all the specs, just need to be updated.
I have no problem advertising bids, but you already have the specs, so that'll be a lot less. Send the specs out to that.
There's nothing wrong with hot water tanks. My friends are consistent. They told me it's not happening for them to get them. I mean, really in a long time.
You won't buy them at your local hardware store. You can't have school without hot water. No further questions, we'll place that on the agenda.
And under item 8I, request the approval for facilities utilization requests. Item number 1 is Dunbar Township Elementary School PTO. Can I do that?
You can
Been
spread those on the
advised to
minutes.
spread these 4 on the minutes, and we'll vote on them Wednesday.
No questions, we'll place those on the agenda for Wednesday.
And that's all we have under buildings and grounds. There was a committee meeting that was held on October the 5th at 6 p.m.
Okay, moving to Carnegie Free Library, please.
Thank you. I have nothing, Mr. Lake? Mr. Van Tellen? You have nothing, thank you.
Thank you, Causeway Career and Technical Center.
Thank you, Mr. O'Manick. Request approval to accept $2,145 business education partnership grant from the Westmoreland Fayette Workforce Investment Board to help pay for the 22 CACTC students to attend the Skills USA Western Regional Leadership Conference, 7 Springs, October 27th through the 29th, 2021. No questions or objections, like that placed on the agenda.
We'll place that on the agenda.
Request approval of Shauna Little, Carrie Detweiler, and 22 students to attend the Skills USA Western Region Leadership Conference, 7 Springs, October 27th through the 29th, 2021, at an approximate cost of $1,285 for advisor, lodging, and substitutes to be paid from Skills USA budget line item number B1313, with all other costs to be paid by the student group, and the $2,145 Business Education Partnership Grant from the Westmoreland Fayette Workforce Investment Board. In accordance with the district student travel policy, no questions or objections like that placed on the agenda.
Place that on the agenda.
Request approval to purchase the following pieces of equipment for the Heavy Equipment Operations Program study. Mini excavator, $51,412 from West Central Equipment. Sourcewell, number 12501. Compact track loader, $58,900 from Broth Tractor, Co-Stars, 522440. And haul truck, $123,500 from Best Line Equipment Co-Stars, 4400019946. These pieces of equipment will be paid for through the Schools to Work program grant funded by the Pennsylvania Department of Labor and Industry. All sales agreements will be reviewed and approved by the business office. No questions or objections like that placed on the agenda.
Question.
Question?
Should the solicitor be added to the approval on this?
Cam? Would you like to look at it, solicitor, for its,
Yeah, we could add that agreements will be reviewed and approved by the business office and solicitor, given the amounts, just to make sure that, you know, we have everything covered with respect to that. That's a good addition to that motion.
Mr. James said this one.
any other?
Anything else?
I got a question. What's a haul truck?
Any other questions?
Any other questions? We'll place that on the agenda.
Mr. Montiel, have anything?
Nothing, thank you.
Anything else, Mr. James?
Just one thing, I know, actually, Mr. Sherman, I was a little come here in case anyone had any questions about the motion on tonight's meeting. That's why they're here actually discussing the paving project. I wanted to thank them specifically for the labor ministry. This board voted to approve the labor ministry grant last spring, $245,000. There's still some money that probably those who use OSHA certification training, but
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. That's all we have, Mr. O'Malley. Thank you.
Thank you. Curriculum.
Thank you, Mr. O'Malley. Travel, according to policy 431. Request approval of the following professional employee travel. Number 1, Bailey, DiCarlo, Knight, teachers to participate in a virtual training implementation and sustaining efforts of PBIS in schools on November 10th, 2021 at a cost of $179.51 for one substitute. Without questions or objections, I'd like that on the agenda.
No questions, place that on the agenda.
Number 2, Sparks, Harvey, Hunt, and Lowe guidance counselors to participate in a virtual training for school counselors December 7th and December 8th, 2021 at a cost of $796 for registration, and without objections or questions, I'd like that on the agenda.
Place it. Question?
Is this a mandatory training?
No, it's not.
Thank you.
Any other questions? We'll place that on the agenda.
Number 3, Christy DiCarlo, Angela Bailey, and Melissa Lowe, Marcy Knight staff to participate in the PBIS training intermediate unit 1 on November 15th, 2021 at a cost of $179.51 for one substitute. Without questions or objections, I'd like that on the agenda.
Question.
Yes.
Again, is this a mandatory training?
No, it's not.
Thank you.
We'll place that on the agenda.
Number 4, Yager, Wamber, Kindai, Adams, Davis, Wright, Audi, and McMasters, and Mr. D'Amico to participate in virtual training Universal Design for Learning, November 15th, January 12th, March 10th, May 12th. Oh, let me go back. November 15th, 2021, January 12th, March 10th, May 12th, 2022, at a cost of $1,256.54 for 7 substitutes. And before I ask that to be placed on the agenda, I do have a question. Mr. D'Amico, the cost of the 7 substitutes, is that for each day or is that for all 4 days? So the total for Wednesday will reflect 4 times 12, 56, 57 then. Okay. Thank you for the clarification. Without any further questions or objections, I'll place that placed on the agenda.
Question,
Yes, sir.
is this another mandatory training or not?
This is not mandatory. Well, it is mandatory if we want to be funded for the $10,000 for a universal design learning. They would have to attend all 4 trainings.
Thank you.
Just one question, is we should change the amount then again.
We should change the amount, estimated $5,026.28 for substitute loss for the store training.
And I asked you if that would be on the Wednesday, and you said it would. Thank you.
So we'll place that on the agenda with the new total cost.
Thank you. Number 5, Julie Brown, Vicki Jordan, Cindy Steichler, Tanya Hodge, Mindy Lynn, Melissa Muskowski, Kim Yager, Becky Wilson, Jolie Grove, Marlene Hansel, Kim O'Brien, Michelle McMasters, Mindy Mortucci, Kaylee Ziegler, and Tim Martin, Lori Mattis, and Mr. D'Amico, and Dr. McWilliams, to participate in a virtual student assistant program SAP training. And there's a change to this. So after the names, I would like, and I will give this to our board secretary, request the approval of, and all the names that I read, to participate in a virtual SAP training through Compass Mark on November 1st, 19th, and 22nd at a cost of $4,225 for registration and $7,517.88 for substitutes. Total cost is $11,742.88, paid for through the ARP, ESSER Learning Loss Funds. And without questions or objections, I'd like that placed on the agenda.
Any questions? Mr. Canaldo, will you make sure that the board secretary has those new numbers, please?
I will do so, thank you.
We'll place that on the agenda.
Number 6, Jordan Agnott, Library Media Specialist, to attend the Three Rivers Educational Technology Conference, TRETC, Penn State University, Greater Allegheny, January 17th, 2022, at an approximate cost of $200 for one substitute and mileage. And without objections or questions, I'd like that placed on the agenda.
Question,
Yes.
mandatory training? Thank you.
No other questions? Place that on the agenda.
Number 7, Jordan Agnott, Library Media Specialist, to attend a Media Coordinators Meeting, Allegheny Intermediate Unit, November 10th, 2021, January 6th, March 23rd, and May 11th, 2022, at an approximate cost of $800 for 4 substitutes and mileage. And without questions or objections, I'd like that placed on the agenda.
Question,
Yes, sir.
mandatory training? Thank you.
No other questions? Place that on the agenda.
I have a question I'd like to pose or ask Dr. Coombs. All of these that we read tonight, place on the agenda, will you check to see, or for us, if any of them were employee requested or were administrative requested, and have those added by each of those numbers from here on in? Thank you. Okay, we have one other item, and this is about the moratorium on district travel. And this moratorium on district travel was 10/27/2021. That's when this is going to take place. And again, I'm going to read it. It's pretty comprehensive. It handles a lot of the questions and the gray areas that we seem to have had in the last time we had it. So please bear with me. And I will make sure that our board secretary has a copy of this before I leave tonight as well. Beginning October 28, 2021, and continuing through the remainder of 2021-2022 school year, and during subsequent school years until further activity is determined by the Board of Education Directors. This moratorium for all district travel will be in effect. All travel and registration must be approved by the Board of Directors prior to travel dates. Travel that will be exempt from the moratorium. Travel that is 100% funded by a grant, including substitute costs. Travel involving a student or students, and then we have an addendum to that we're going to add to that, where the ratio number of district employees being paid to attend such events as chaperones, but including any student specified or IEP required aids. Exceed 1 employee per elementary, 10 students, secondary, 15 students. Travel that is critical to maintaining employee certification in current position. District administrators and building principals are hereby directed and required to implement this moratorium. And there may be questions. If there are no questions or objections, I'd like that placed on the agenda.
Questions? No questions, we'll place that on the agenda.
Thank you. There was a committee meeting on October 12th at 6 o'clock. Mr. Martray, anything further? Mrs. Sanksman? Okay. And Dr. Combs? That's all we have tonight. Thank you.
Sure, although I actually had something on the curriculum I forgot to tell you, sorry.
Please take
If I could have the floor for a second.
Yes, you
Number one, Dr. Coons, the opportunity for the social studies department that we learned about just a few hours ago, was that something we wanted to ask the board to add? Perfect. Perfect. I just wanted to make sure we didn't miss that. And number two, Mr. D'Amico, the UDL grant, did we want to accept that grant, to realizing that it would then pay for the items that were proposed to be accepted as trainings? So accept the grant at some point, either in curriculum. Mr. Grinaldo's, at Mr. Grinaldo's pleasure, if you could also add that, Mr. Grinaldo, the acceptance of the Universal Design Learning Grant, we would appreciate that, in the amount of $10,000.
So we have two motions for?
Just the social studies one will come up in student services, correct, Dr. Coons? And then this UDL, Universal Design Learning, will come up now if you would accept the grant, and that would, if the other spending is approved, that's where that money is coming from, out of the $10,000 grant that Mr. D'Amico secured.
Okay, so you'll get that wording to the board secretary to add to the agenda then?
I will.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything further, Mr. Grinaldo? Moving to cyber.
I have nothing. Mark?
Nothing, thank you.
No.
Just one item, I want to thank the committee, the hard work that they did on putting together the MOU. I understand that the MOU is shared with the bargaining unit and with the committee board. And that's all I want to say. That's the MOU on the cyber for this year.
Okay, thank you. Federal programs, Mr. Martucci's not here. Mrs. Sankston, will you take that, please? Oh, she not. Mr. Martray, would you take that, please?
Thank you, Mr. Matic. Under Schoology and Professional Development, request approval to have 2 on-site instructors for 1 day of Schoology professional development, a cost of $7,000 to be paid from the Title II funds. No questions or objections, I'd like to have that placed on the agenda.
We'll place that on the agenda.
13B, after-school tutoring. Request approval to provide virtual after-school tutoring to support students who have been affected by the COVID-19 pandemic to be paid for from the ARPE ESS ER funds. No questions or objections, I'd like to have that placed on the agenda.
We'll place that on the agenda. Oh, question.
Sorry. Why wasn't we have the, how many students will go in the student program?
The students that are out because of COVID? Absolutely. I mean, no one's enrolled in it.
Yeah, now I wonder how many people were going in the court.
It doesn't exist, so we don't have any more.
Yes,
Like, we don't have an after-school tutoring program, so that's,
This is a motion to make it.
to provide it, right. Providing help for these students who need it. It would be Monday through Thursday for 1 hour, 4 to 5. And there'll be someone there to give them some help. Because after this last 2 years, these kids are going to need help. At least it's there in place. And we have to use 20%, minimum 20% of that ESSER money to recover their education. So we might as well use this and take advantage, give these kids some help. That's what this was all about.
You don't worry about what all the officers are, they give their assignments, but that seems like a big problem.
I thought this was for the quarantine kids. Is this something different than I guess we didn't know?
I don't know about that. My question would be, I'll wait till you get that answer, then I'll ask my question.
I think the source of this absolutely was students that were quarantined and students that were isolated due to COVID. That was the proposition given to myself and Dr. Coons, to develop some sort of help for students that were either quarantined because of close contact or they themselves was isolated due to being positive themselves. So I as far as the evolution, that's where that's where Dr. Coons and I left it as a proposal for after-school tutoring when we had students that were quarantined. Right now, we have 0 students that are quarantined.
How do we know what we're voting on?
Maybe I can shed some light on that, Mr. Panzella, and help you with the numbers, Mr. Lake. And it says here, support students who have been affected by COVID-19 pandemic. What is our student population in the Collins area school district?
Very, very round numbers, 4,300 students.
4,300. So I would say roughly 4,200 students could be impacted by this if they felt that they needed help. The ESSER funds for learning loss recovery is actually for this kind of a program, and I don't know if that helps answer that question or not.
It would help them get their assignments.
Not really, because now if we have 4,200 students, are we going to have enough tutors to handle 4,200 students? I mean, that's what you just said.
Mr. Panzella, what I said was, I was answering the question about who it affects. Who could benefit from this program? Every student in our district could benefit from this program. What students will benefit from the program? Those who will call in during those time periods would be able to benefit from them. After the time is over, the time is over. It doesn't have a starting or ending date. This board or the next board could choose in January to sunset this program. That would be entirely up to the board. They could do it in December if they liked. They could do it this Wednesday if they liked. That's who will be impacted by this: the students, the parents, the taxpayers of the Collins area school district, with federal funds that were taxpayers' money that came back to the district that is set aside for use for learning loss recovery.
Do you have enough tutors to handle 4,200 students?
No.
You're saying that we have to afford each student. I'm asking you that.
Mr. Panzella,
Yes.
the question was, how many students could benefit from this? not how many students will participate.
Well, no, now I'm asking you how many may participate, because you've got to be ready in case we have a large influx. Are you ready?
And we have teachers every day who are ready to meet that challenge. 42 minutes, 8 periods a day, 5 days a week, for 185 days a year when they have the students in front of them. We have a number of teachers, I guess there were more teachers signed on than we actually needed for the program. We could always add, if the board would choose to add to that. To do nothing would be wasting the funds that were allocated to do it, this kind of program. And my question would be is, who wants to send back taxpayer dollars that have been issued to us for programs that we can utilize it? How many people take it? I mean, we have a school bus that holds 66. What do we do with the 67th student? Do we say, no, you can't get on? We have to be prepared.
Well, I don't want to send any money back, but my question is, in case we need to take care of each kid, are we prepared for this? Dr. Coombs, I mean, did you have a number, or is this how we were handling this? I'm a little confused. So now we had a plan in place that the administration put in, and now we are putting something on top of this, according to, must be for you two, that's going to mess this plan up possibly, and we may not be prepared for what could happen. I mean, of course we want to help each kid, but we also want to have a good plan and be prepared for it. And it doesn't sound like even our administration is aware of what you wanted to do.
I didn't write this motion, Mr. Panzella.
Doing a lot of narrating on it.
Sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
You're doing a lot of narration on it. It seems like you...
Well, I'm just trying to explain what it says to me in front. It says affected by COVID-19 pandemic. Every student in this district has been affected by the pandemic. Every parent has been affected by the pandemic. Every employee has been affected by the pandemic. This is not addressing the parents or the employees, it's addressing the students. Now, which students can utilize this program, that's an administrative decision. I don't want to micromanage that, nor should anybody up here. That's a curriculum, and we have very high-skilled people in place to be able to do that for us. I'm just commenting, narrating what it says.
So to clarify the motion, just so the board understands the nature of the motion and the request, is the proper interpretation, this is a motion to request approval for the plan that was prepared by Dr. Bradley and Dr. Coombs, as presented currently, without expanding it to necessarily all 4,200 students in the district. Is that, it was indicated there's a plan that's already been prepared to address a more limited number of students that have been more directly affected through quarantines, correct? So is the nature of that motion, this motion, to approve that specific plan? I just want to clarify and make sure everybody's voting on the same thing.
Thank you, that helps a lot.
And that was my understanding.
Question, do we have a backup plan in case this falls through?
The only
Yes,
other
not.
a backup plan, if, I guess I'm just trying to digest the question, a backup plan if the tutoring for students out in quarantine and isolation falls through.
Correct.
Due to the fact that there are 0 kids on quarantine right now and the number of isolations for positives keeps declining, we did not prepare a backup plan. For 0 students and the number of students that are isolating declining daily to currently we have 5 students that are isolating due to COVID-19 in the Collinsville School District.
But again, we had talked at one point that we were going to include all students that were still homebound for some reason or another. Whether it was measles, mumps, broken leg, broken arm, bad trip to Florida.
Sure, if you're legally absent, you could utilize.
Right, so we have a backup.
I did not prepare backup.
The only other plan was spoke, you were there, Mr. Hartman, was the live stream. And that would that's going to take a little bit more planning. There's a lot of contractual things that have to be worked out, MOUs and things like that nature. So that's going to take a little bit more time, but that's something that could be worked on. But this right now can help the kids that are in need at this point. And that's our thrust on this, is try to get the kids that are needing some extra help. They know it's there. All they got to do is go on online and get the information they need to get the help. Taking over, Mr. Hall, that's all I have under federal. That committee meeting was on October 12th at 6:30.
Okay, thank you very much. Now I have to find my place because I wasn't prepared to walk over here. Committee. No, I wasn't. Okay, finance.
Good, do you have anything additional? I'm sorry. Mr. Brad, do you have anything additional?
I did not think, I didn't think that.
I'm sorry.
Okay, before we leave 13D, was that placed on the agenda? Okay. And there was a committee meeting. Okay, under finance, Mr. Mongeau.
Item 14A, request the approval of the buildings and grounds purchases from September the 18th, 2021 through October the 15th, 2021. And I'd like that placed on the agenda. The amount will be on there on Wednesday.
Hearing no objections, that will be placed on the agenda. Question?
Why is this from September the 18th? When was our last board meeting? September what? 22nd? We made a motion, I think, Wednesday the 22nd to pay all bills. So why would it be from the 18th? In other words, we would have made the motion the last time to pay all the bills for the list.
It ends on Friday.
I'm sorry, but
It ends on Friday.
Friday before the board meeting. So that's why it says the 18th.
Right.
Any further questions?
The only thing I'm saying is maybe we can adjust that to the Friday before the board meeting. I mean,
Mrs. Grinnell? Would you please repeat that?
we make this, any way we can get the bills paid Friday before. I don't know why we're going from September the 18th to October the 15th. Vicky's saying that's 2 Fridays before the board meeting. But our board meeting now, October 15th. It says October 2nd, 22nd. I have October 15th. It says October 22nd. September 18th, October.
Yeah, but he's saying October.
I'm talking
This one, whatever the ones I handed out, when I don't know when it's.
18th and 22nd.
Yeah, that's what it says.
I was reading the amount of buildings and grounds. No, it says that request approval of buildings and grounds purchases from September the 18th to October the 15th.
And then the
That's
next
what it
one
said.
said, yeah, and then I worked with the next
So
one.
I don't know why the difference.
Purchase orders, things we need to order, and then the other one is buildings and grounds bills that we typically pay, but not require purchase order. Just always pay every month.
The normal bills, say like now,
The normal,
Spottos, places like that.
Well, those are POs, less than.
So that's not a building and ground.
Understood?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm good. So just for my
Clarification. So these, all right, I'll wait for 14B. I apologize. Thank you.
Hearing no other objections or questions, we'll place that on the agenda.
Item 14B, request the approval of the tax requisitions and to authorize the district business office to process purchase orders. Without any problems, I'd like that placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, that'll be placed on the agenda.
Just a point of clarification. If this passes on Wednesday, this gives our business office approval to follow through completely with these purchase orders, meaning if it's Napa or if it's anyone, they got approval for the purchase order and approval to pay it. I just wanted that crystal clear in public so that everyone knows they have that approval, and that's the intent of the, I don't want to speak for the board as a, non-voting member, but that's the intent of this board to allow them to make the payments then as well. Thank you.
Mrs. Brunel, you agree? Thank you.
I think that helps clarify a lot for us.
All right, that will be placed on the agenda. 14C.
14C, request the approval of the attached district credit card orders and to authorize the district business office to process the orders. Without any questions, I'd like that placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, that'll be placed on the agenda.
That's all I have, Mr. Bernaldo. Do you have anything?
No, I do not, thank you.
Mr. Panzala?
So that's a question, how come they don't have paid?
How come they don't have faith? Well, I mean, that's a question. maybe.
Mrs. Brunel, so that we're consistent on all of these, could those dates be then added?
Or do they run, I guess my biggest question is, do they run further instead of the last Friday, or do we have the same cutoffs? Thank you, that's good enough.
Okay, anything else under finance?
No, that's it, thank you.
Food service, Mr. Gonzalez.
Nothing, thank you.
Thank you. Personnel, Mr. Martray.
Thank you, Mr. Bernardo. 16A, unpaid leave, request approval for custodian to take an unpaid leave of absence effective November 15, 2021 for the remainder of the 2021-22 school year. No questions or objections. Like to have that placed on the agenda.
That'll be placed on the agenda.
question.
Question?
I know Mr. Mortray's going to agree quite a bit here, so we can
Yeah.
try to get what I wanted for Wednesday as far as the update on ASUs.
Outside of FMLA, yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, 16B, unpaid leave, request approval for custodian to take an unpaid leave of absence for the 2021-22 school year. No questions or objections. Like to have that placed on the agenda.
Placed on the agenda.
16C, unpaid leave, request approval for a teacher to take an unpaid leave of absence beginning on or about February 14, 2022 until or about April 11, 2022. No questions or objections. Like to have that placed on the agenda.
That'll be placed on the agenda.
16D, unpaid leave. Request approval for Sonia Bentley A. to extend her unpaid leave of absence through December 31st, 2021. No questions or objections. Like to have that placed on the agenda.
That'll be placed on the agenda.
16E, unpaid leave. Request approval for teacher to take an unpaid leave of absence beginning November 2nd, 2021 until January 19th, 2022. No questions or objections. Like to have that placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, that'll be on the agenda.
16F, unpaid leave. Request approval for teacher to take an unpaid leave of absence beginning on or about January 3rd, 2022 until on or about April 3rd, 2022. No questions or objections. Like to have that placed on the agenda.
That'll be placed on the agenda.
16G, unpaid leave. Request approval for teacher to take an unpaid leave of absence beginning on or about January 3rd, 2022 until on or about February 28th, 2022. No questions or objections. I'd like to have that placed on the agenda.
That'll be placed on the agenda.
16.8, personal student aid. Request approval to hire as a personal student aid effective October 27, 2021. No questions or objections. I'd like to have that placed on the agenda.
Be placed on the agenda.
16I, personal student aid. Request approval to hire as a personal student aid effective October 27, 2021. No questions or objections. I'd like to have that placed on the agenda.
That'll be placed on the agenda.
16J, personal student aid. Request approval to hire as a personal student aid effective October 27, 2021. No questions or objections. I'd like to have that placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, that'll be on the agenda.
16K, addition, support professional substitute. Request approval of the additions to the support professional substitute list for the 2021-22 school year. No questions or objections. I'd like to have that placed on the agenda.
Be placed on the agenda.
16L, additions professional substitute list. Request approval of the additions to the professional substitute list for the 2021-22 school year. No questions or objections. I'd like to have that placed on the agenda.
Placed on the agenda.
16M, resignation. Request approval to accept the resignation of teacher with a final date of employment to be December 14th per Act 14 of the PA Code or unless released prior to December 14th pending appropriate replacement and transition with replacement as approved by the superintendent. No questions or objections. I'd like to have that placed on the agenda.
Be placed on the agenda. I have a question, however. Are we going to advertise for this position, replacement?
That was our hope because of the uniqueness of the position. By contract, we can fill it with a long-term sub, but with a non-precedenting discussed during liaison, we would like to advertise to fill that due to the uniqueness of that position that's being vacated in the low candidate pool that we anticipate having.
So our request to advertise for that position will be part of this for next month.
It's already.
It's already here?
It's already been posted. It's just that we would ask for the hiring when the hiring takes place. So it's already been.
Thank you for the clarification. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that'll be placed on the agenda.
16N, release time. Request approval of release time for Margaret Rockwell, ESP Region Officer at Large for 1 day on November 12th, 2021 to attend the ESP Region Board of Directors meeting at no cost to the district in accordance with the district travel policy. No questions or objections. I'd like to have that placed on the agenda.
That'll be placed on the agenda.
16O, resignation. Request approval to accept the resignation of clerk effective November 5th, 2021. No questions or objections. I'd like to have that placed on the agenda.
It'll be placed on the agenda.
16P, unpaid leave. Request approval for teacher to take an intermittent unpaid days effective October 19th, 2021 through the remainder of the 2021-22 school year. No questions or objections. I'd like to have that placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, it'll be placed on the agenda.
I think we're at the end. Mr. Ronaldo, Mr. Mongello, do you have anything?
Nothing, thank you.
Mr. Ronaldo, do you have anything in addition to that?
Nothing further, thank you.
Dr. Bradley?
Nothing, thank you.
That's all we have.
Thank you. Policy and legislative, Mr. Harshman.
Thank you. 17A, revised policy. Request approval of the following revised policy. 004, BOG, oath of office certificate. 810.1, school bus drivers and school commercial motor vehicle drivers. 916, volunteer program. 218.1, weapons. 218.2, terroristic threats. 247, hazing. 249, bullying and cyberbullying. 805.2, school security personnel. 006, meetings. 006, BOG, published, post, and notify. 903, public participation in board meetings. 810, transportation. 818, contracted services. No questions or objections. I'd like those placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, those will be placed on the agenda.
17B, additional policy. Request approval of the following additional policies. 137.1, extracurricular participation by home education students. 236.1, threat assessment. 817, social media. 800.1, electronic signatures. No questions or objections, I'd like that placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, those will be placed on the agenda.
Policy committee meeting was held October 14th, 5 p.m. That's all I have. Mr. Grinaldo,
I have nothing further, thank you.
Dr. Bradley,
Nothing, thank you, Mr. Horstman.
we have nothing further.
Thank you, Mr. Horstman. Safety and security, Mr. Martray.
Thank you, Mr. Granado. Emergency Operation Plan, request approval for Collinsville Area School District Emergency Operations Plan for 2021-22 school year. No questions or objections, like to have that placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, that will be placed on the agenda.
Mr. Parlek here? Okay, that's all we have.
Thank you, Mr. Martray. Special education, Mr. Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Bernardo. Request approval to renew the collaboration agreement with Marquis Behavioral Health for the 2021-2022 school year for students. No questions or objections, like that placed on the agenda.
That will be placed on the agenda.
Request approval of the statement of agreement between the Pennsylvania Training and Technical Assistance Network, PATTAN, and the Collinsville Area School District for universal design for the learning implementation grant for the 2021-2022 school year. No questions or objections, like that placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, that will be placed on the agenda.
That's all we have, I believe. Mr. D'Amico, you have anything else?
Thank you.
That's all we have, Mr. Bernardo. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Student services, Mr. Mongel.
Thank you. Item 28, request the approval for an annual subscription and online training for the Student Assistance Program software to be paid by Fayette County Drug and Alcohol Commission for the 2021-22 school year. And without question, I'd like that placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, that will be placed on the agenda.
Item B, request the approval of the staffing agreement between Blue Cloud Staffing, LLC, and the Collinsville Area School District for the 21-22 school year. And without questions, I'd like that placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, that question? Question, go ahead.
What is that?
Any further questions? Hearing no other questions, that will be placed on the agenda.
Item 20C, travel in accordance with policy number 121. Request the approval of the following travel. There are 6 listed. I would like to spread those on the agenda for Wednesday without question or any objections.
Those will be spread across the agenda and will be placed on the agenda.
Item 20D, ProCare Therapy. Request the approval of the client service agreement between ProCare Therapy and the Collinsville Area School District for a speech-language pathologist at the rate of $80 an hour for a minimum of 32.5 hours a week. Without questions, I'd like that placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, that will be placed on the agenda.
Mr. Grinaldo, I'd like to back up to the request for the travel. Was there another one we were going to add, Dr. Coons?
Yes.
That you mentioned?
So that's going to be added.
I have a motion to read on food services.
Okay, we'll circle back to that after we get done with this one. Okay, Mr. Lee, do you have another motion?
Yes.
Come back to you.
I wish this administrator would have given it to Mr. Mongel because she sure didn't print it. Request approval for Sarah Hope, Beth Angel, and Greg Mortrage to take an approximate 40 students to Penn State Fair for a social science day. Transportation will be paid for by Penn State University. No questions or objections like that placed on the agenda.
Hearing no questions or objections, that will be placed on the agenda. That's all.
Yeah, that's all. Mr. Mondial, I think they have a committee meeting. That's all I have.
Mr. Montiel, you want to tell us about the committee meeting?
To clarify, too, were we anticipating that there would be a motion to actually accept the Universal Design for Learning grant in the amount of $10,000 under student services as well? So that's the motion to actually accept that grant? Okay. So the response there was,
Where's it at?
under special education 19B, that's the motion to actually accept that.
Gotcha, I see it. Thank you. Yep, I see it. 19B. Thank you.
Mr. Lake, do you have any?
Nothing, thank you.
Mr. Pico? That's all we have under,
Thank you, Mr. Montiel. Technology, Mr. Panzel.
Request approval to license the Spire 11 software from Vectric Limited at a cost of $400. No objections or questions. I'd like to have that added.
Hearing none, that will be placed on the agenda.
Mr. Harshman, you have anything?
Yes, I think it's time that we get some microphones so that we can hear the administrators. It's very hard to hear up here.
You would want to have a conversation with Mr. Hammond. He's located at the back of the auditorium.
We can do that. I think it's my second request for that.
I believe it is. Thank you, Mr. Panzel. We can't hear back there.
You already said enough.
Thank you, Mr. Panzel. Transportation, Mr. Blake.
Thank you, Mr. Bernardo. Request approval of the following addition to the bus van driver list for the 2021 to 2022 school year. T.A. Nelson Bus Lines and E.W. Colburn Bus Lines. No question or objections. We'll place those names on Wednesday for the agenda.
Hearing no questions or objections, that will be placed on the agenda.
Mr. Panzelli, you have anything?
Nothing, thank you.
Mr. Harshman?
Nothing, thank you.
And I don't know if Mr. Evans made it back from the soccer match or not. He's off the playoff point. So that's all we have, Mr. Bernardo. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Blake. Residents report, I have nothing here tonight. There could be something on Wednesday. Public comment for non-agenda items. We have none. Assistant to the superintendent's comments. Mrs. Burnell? Nothing. Superintendent's comments. Dr. Bradley.
Yeah, I did get an update on the soccer game, the playoffs, and our young team, our girls soccer team lost, but it was a well-fought game according to Mr. Evans. He texted me, and look forward to the future from those soccer players and their future successes. And I just want to thank the community, the entire board. You know, the last couple of weeks we've gone through different mask mandates and different mask policies, and just to see the students respond in such a proactive, compliant way was really refreshing. And our teachers really helped with the compliance, helped with our working with our students that were having issues with it, and just having that board support. And the result, and the fruit of that labor, we have seen just a drastic drop in the number of close contacts, down to 0, and just a drastic drop in the number of quarantines that this district has been required to inform students of, and ultimately a drop in the number of students that are being isolated due to COVID. Right now, I believe we're at 4. I'd have to look at my numbers, what I sent this afternoon, but I thank you for the support board. I thank you for the support from the parents and from ultimately the students that are the ones that every day come to school to get the experience they can, and they get through it. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bradley. A motion to adjourn.